everyone, this is Amy with Simply Elizabeth Craft, and happy World Card Making Day. I'm super excited to be able to show you a technique today called watercolor stamping. So what this entails is, and I've done a lot of testing on different products, and so I'm going to show you really quick just some samples that I did, and then I'll go into exactly how you do it. So these are just some samples. This one I really watered up. I did a lot of spraying on it, and you can tell it really kind of took away some of the detail. So I wasn't real pleased with that. Now this one, I liked this one a lot better. I really didn't saturate the stamp before I stamped it onto the watercolor paper. And then you've got this one, and it just shows you the difference there as well. So this one wasn't watered up too much. With this being detailed, you can see what the detail did when you added a lot of water to it. And this was one that I did a little extra inking around the edge to give it some multicolored. And then you've got this one. I thought this one turned out pretty good, but with it not being a solid image, it would be really hard to color into that. So I decided not to use that stamp. That was the original one I was gonna do. And then you've got these two right here. This is probably one of my favorite images. One of my favorite heart images that Stampin' Up! Has ever had. And then you've got the sunflower, which I love sunflowers. I also did this one on the back, just trying some other different ones. You can see that one was really wet. And on this one, I actually wet the paper first and then stamped down. And I did that on this one as well, and then on that one. So you can kind of see the differences, just so you can kind of tell which would be your favorite. So let's dive into the card itself. So this is the card we're going to be making. I'm kind of in the Christmas mode right now. For a lot of different people in my life have asked for Christmas cards this year. So I figured I'd go ahead and get a head start on those. And this is the one. So we're going to be using Evergreen Elegance. And then I also embossed the background with the Evergreen Forest embossing folder, which I absolutely love this embossing folder. Okay, so let's get started. I'm gonna move all that out of my way. All right, so I've got Evening Evergreen cardstock. I'm gonna use my bone folder to give it a good crease, and then I'm gonna set this aside for just a second. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and attach my first layer. So I went ahead and embossed it so I didn't have to waste your time with that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and adhere that down using my Stampin' Seal Plus, because that's what I've got close to me right now. And I'm gonna add a little extra just down the center, just because it is embossed, and I wanna make sure that it sticks really nicely and it doesn't go anywhere. All right, so we're gonna add that on there. And I'm going to press down pretty nicely just to make sure that it adheres to that cardstock. Okay, now we're going to stamp our trees here, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my two stamps. So I wanted the tall Christmas tree, and then I got a short one, but this is the medium size one. Then there's one other size, and it's the tiny one. But I decided to go with these two right here. I'm going to take my Evening Evergreen ink, and I'm going to ink it up really good. And I'm going to ink up the other one really good as well. And you do want to make sure that you cover your workspace, because if you don't, you're going to have everything wet. And with the spritzing, it will actually take the ink and move it, so you'll get sprinkles everywhere. Okay, so I'm gonna take a Stampin' Up! Spritzer. This works best with actually spritzing right onto your stamps. You can do your paper, but again, this was about what I got when I actually wet the paper. And it doesn't keep the details of your stamps. So I find it's easier to actually stamp or to spritz right onto your stamp. Now you want to hold it, I don't know, maybe half a foot to a foot above your stamp, and then you're going to just spritz it. I have found about 4 times with these 2 stamps works great, as long as you hit the stamp. Sometimes I miss it. Okay, and then you can tell, like, it'll start to move a good bit. Let me see if I can actually hold that up so that you can see it. You can start to see the ink on it is moving, okay? Now that is still pretty detail oriented when you stamp it. So if you wanted to, you could stamp it 1 more time. Totally up to you. Okay. Now I'm going to take watercolor paper. This is watercolor paper that Stampin' Up! Has, and it is called Fluid 100. And this paper I have actually learned is really good. I've used it a lot and I really do like it. So that is in our annual catalog. All right, and then I'm going to stamp it down. I'm going to start with the tallest one. I'm going to line it up close to the bottom. Okay, and you can see that's still pretty detail oriented, which is what I like, but it's got a lot of color variation in different areas. And then we'll stamp this one. And then you can tell up here that it kind of smeared together because it looks like that's where all the water went. Again, I'm good with that. I think it gives it a little bit different of a look as well. All right, I'm gonna set those aside so I don't get it everywhere. Now, I am gonna show you something else. So this one is very detail oriented here at the bottom. You can very lightly give it 1 little spritz to maybe give it a little bit extra of moving that watercolor around. Don't saturate your paper like you would if you were stamping down onto it, okay? So I'm just gonna give it 1, 2 there, and it's just a little mist that's falling down onto it, so it'll kind of help give it a little bit more moisture to that paper, okay? And then you can even move it a little bit if you wanted to, but that is what it looks like. Now, I've already stamped it before, and that's where it ends up. Now on this one, I did get a little too much water on it, but again, it's fine. If you don't like it, obviously you can start over, but that is there. So let's bring in our card base again, and I'm gonna move my paper there just so I don't get this re-wet. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take some of this Simply Elegant trim. Everything today for me apparently has the word elegant or elegance in it. So, all right, we're gonna take the silver trim. We're gonna wrap it around the top, and I'm gonna see if I can tie a bow. Sometimes I struggle tying bows on videos. Even though I'm not filming this live, it's not gonna matter. I'm probably gonna mess it up because that's how it works. All right. I have to concentrate. Let's do it one more time. One more time. I got it, right? And I can always move it up too. I think the hardest part of the trim is putting your finger down there so that you can tie it and keep it in place. All right, we're gonna try this one more time. If it doesn't work, that is good enough for me. Okay, I think that turned out pretty good because I wanted my tails to face down, not up, so I had to do it in a weird way. Okay, now we're gonna trim it off. And I'm not gonna let it have really, really long tails, just so that it's not hanging over into the tree area. All right, and I'm gonna play with this bow for just a second. I'm gonna grab a glue dot and see if I can get it to stay underneath it, okay? Let's see, where are my glue dots? Right here. I'm gonna grab my take your pick tool. This is what I love about little glue dots. I'm gonna roll it up. I'll roll it up to be really, really tiny. Then I'm gonna stick it up underneath. We're actually gonna pull it up some more. Okay, then we're gonna stick that right there and stick the bow right on top. Okay, now that conforms to my will of the bow. All right. Okay, so there we go. I'm good with that now. So we're going to take now and flip this over, and we're going to put some dimensionals on the back. I'm going to find the right size dimensionals. We're going to put 1, 2, and 3 up top. Now, I am a dimensional person, just in general, but especially with watercolor paper, you want to make sure that you put enough of adhesive on the back that it really will keep it adhered down on your card base, okay? All right, so let's do that one and that one, and then one more right there. So we'll take the backings off. We'll flip it over. Now on the sample, I went all the way up to the top. I think I'm just gonna go down to the actual soft succulent color and line it up with that. Okay, so there we go. And now we're gonna stamp our sentiment. So I'm gonna stamp our sentiment in Evening Evergreen. And I'm gonna stamp it on this scrap of soft succulent. And get it good and inked up. It would probably help if I did it the right way. All right, let's flip it over here. Okay, and now I'm going to take a little cutter, which let me grab it 2 seconds. Had to reach behind me to get it. And we're gonna trim off just a touch of this bottom here. And then we're gonna come up and cut off here so that we've got a little banner. Then we're gonna trim off the edges here, pretty close to our last and our first letter. And then we're gonna flag the ends. And how you flag the ends is you cut up the center, and then you come in from each side up to that cut center. Just watch your fingers with the scissors. You don't wanna cut yourself. All right, so up the center, and then in from each side, like that, okay? And now I don't wanna add any more bulk to my card, so I'm just gonna flip this over and put adhesive on it. So I'm gonna pull out that Stampin' Seal Plus again, and then we're gonna attach it right about here. Okay, and then I just press down really good just to make sure that it's on there. Now, I kind of thought that it was missing something. Even though it has this silver trim on it, I still felt like it was missing something. So I pulled out some of the basic Rhinestone jewels, which I've been in Stampin' Up! For 6 years now, a little over 6 years. And these have been a part of Stampin' Up! Since I started. And they were one of my very first embellishments that I ever bought. So, because you can color them with your Stampin' Blends, and so you can make it any color you want, which is fantastic. So I'm gonna add 5. I'm an odds girl. I like, for everything, when I do my embellishments, I like for them to be odd numbers. Okay. Now, last but not least, you have to do the inside. And if you really want to take the time, you can definitely do a little bit more of that watercoloring on the inside, but I'm not. I'm just going to kind of stick with my trees. And I'm going to do Evening Evening Evergreen again. And what I need to do though is I actually need to clean my stamp because that's too much water. I don't want that much water in my ink pad. So I'm just going to take one of our chamois, give it a good clean, and I don't like that sound. It always makes my skin curl sometimes. Okay, so I'm going to ink this up. And I love stamping off. I love having what is called first, second, third generation stuff. So I'm going to stamp it kind of toward, off center toward the right, like that. And then I'm going to slightly move it up, and I'm going to stamp it again without re-inking my stamp. And I just love the look of that. And that looks like soft succulent. So you get soft succulent by stamping off your Evening Evergreen. All right, so let's put some adhesive on the back of this. All right, and then we're going to attach it to our inside. All right, so there is our card. Now on this one, I did add some Wink of Stella, so you can do that. This wasn't 100% dry, so you don't want to add the Wink of Stella until your images are completely, fully dry, and then you can add that Wink of Stella on top. So I hope you enjoyed my card. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know. Thanks everyone, and I hope you have a great time watching all the videos today.